Welcome to Imperfect Momming. Our children are constantly looking to us for examples. The term role model doesn't quite cut it here. We are shaping their worldview with every move we make. You see, it's not in the lectures we give or moments where we are actively attempting to teach them. It's in the micro movements we make, the unconscious ways in which we navigate life. We are constantly teaching our children how to show up for themselves, their friends, their future partners, and even their future children. So what can we do to ensure we are raising thoughtful, compassionate, self-aware human beings? We have to become them ourselves. No one is perfect, but we can still all be better, and it starts with self-healing. Let's get to it. Welcome back to Imperfect Momming, and we have our most farthest away guest today, Eleanor Hatherly, and welcome to Imperfect Momming.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to be here.
Absolutely. It's great to have you. So can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. So I'm a mum. I've got a 17-year-old daughter. So I've had 17 years of parenting to get through. And I originally was a graphic designer, but after my daughter was born, I kind of got into some sort of more alternative stuff. And I went on a counselling course, which I absolutely loved.
Yeah.
And it kind of started from there. And I just went on so many courses and read all the books and just kind of really educated myself. And I became an EFT practitioner, which is tapping. I think people are beginning to have heard of tapping now. Yeah. So I've been working as a practitioner, and I went on to study quite a few other bits and pieces as well. So I've been part-time graphic designer, part-time mum, and part-time therapist.
That's amazing.
And then I ended up writing a book, kind of by mistake. So
yeah. By mistake.
Yes, yeah, you can write a book by mistake.
That's amazing. I don't know that I've ever written a book by mistake. I always say that I've been a writer since I could put two sentences together. I took a little break between my 20s and 30s, but back into the first thing I did when I got into this coaching world was write a book.
Yeah, it's a good thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's a good learning process. You sort of solidify all your own learnings somehow by writing a book. It's good.
Now, you said you started with one course and then went to another and then to another and to another. And I believe that that's how it goes.
Yes. Yeah. It's a one-way street, isn't it? Once you've entered it, you can't come back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I thought it was interesting when I had been interviewing moms for a couple of years, and one of the questions I ask is, who do you follow in the life coaching industry? And they either have a list of people or they don't know what the life coaching industry is. There's no in between.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about this book that you wrote and who it's for.
So the reason the book came about was that my daughter ended up homeschooling for a couple of years, which wasn't a planned thing. It was she didn't settle at her secondary school, and we in the end had no choice but to pull her out. And then because we're in a town which is very popular for for education, good schools, we couldn't get to another school place, so we ended up sort of homeschooling her for a couple of years, which was a great experience. But I just came across so many children that were really struggling. I mean, really a lot of the homeschooled children are children that can't cope with the school system. Mm-hmm. They're just kind of almost, just don't fit in with the system. And because I'd done this therapy training, I just could always see what was going on for them. And it's so difficult because you want to help them and you want to say things, but it's really difficult with parents involved. You can't go around telling their children what they're doing wrong, everything. So I started to just put together I thought I'll just print up a couple of pages and give it to my daughter and she can put it on her social media. But I just kept typing away and typing away, and oh, I must put a bit about that, oh, and there's that and that, and it just went on and on and on, and it actually ended up at about 350 pages, and then I realized I'd written too much, and I had to cut it back down to about 250. So yes, it was a great experience. I loved it, loved doing it.
What an interesting way to write it, where you have too much, where you go from I just want to do these things, and then now I've got too much and I've got to pare it back.
Exactly. Yeah.
Very cool. And so it's written for teens.
Yes. One of the things that I found as a parent of a teenager is they get to a point where they don't want to share their emotions with their parents, and they become quite private, and they can be often quite ashamed of emotions, and they don't want to see therapists for the same reason. So they just get stuck in this little world of sort of misery and what I'd call wrong thought, really, because they're just having, they're just perceiving everything in the wrong way. And I just sort of thought it would be lovely if I could do a book where they can read it themselves. It has exercises in it, so I've been calling it like having your own personal therapist in a book. So it's very sort of supportive and like guiding them by themselves to really uncover what's going on for them, and what's really behind everything.
And teenagers have this idea that for some reason that parents don't understand what they're going through, and they've never been there, and there's a lot of things, I would say that my son's going to have to deal with that I probably didn't, like cyberbullying, and I would even say that I didn't experience a lot of bullying either, to my face, but I would say that the one incident that comes to my mind, and you didn't mention bullying, but that was where my mind went. But like my one incident where I was feeling bullied was a group of girls, and now I don't even remember what they said or did or anything, and I just remember them being, rather mean, and then going home and talking to my mom about it, because I would talk to my mom about everything. And her advice, which was super annoying at the time, was kill them with kindness. And that was always her advice when someone was being mean to me or acting in a way that I didn't appreciate. It was always kill them with kindness. And now as an adult, I realize how profound that advice was. And I did it. I actually did. I don't know that I killed her with kindness, but I remember giving her giving this girl that was in the locker next to me and a compliment. And I don't remember what I said. And but she was never mean to me again. And the girls stopped being mean.
I think that's a great thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah. And I even think that she and the one that I gave the compliment to, I think we're friends on Facebook. I don't think she remembers any of this. We've never talked about it. And maybe I'm thinking it's her and it was somebody else, but we've never talked about it, but we are friends on Facebook. We've, talked a bit here and there, and I'm, not involved in her life, but I'm aware of certain things that are going on with her, and she's part of my mom group on Facebook and everything, and just asked me if we could invite another friend, from high school, but I always admired my mom for
sounds very wise.
For that thought process. And I say it to my son, and he's equally as annoyed as I was. And
I think there's a bit of a difference in the UK and America, because I think people in America are just a bit more open emotionally. So, if someone's got a problem emotionally, it's not such a big deal because everyone's more open. Whereas in the UK, it's very sort of stiff upper lip and we mustn't have emotions. Society's very shut down emotionally. And the parents model this to their children. You've got a problem, we talk about it behind their back, and then we, button it all down and suppress our emotions, or we mustn't get upset, we mustn't be angry, or cry or anything like that. Heaven help, you know. So I think it's particularly difficult here, really, for the teens, you know, managing these emotions and things.
Yeah, and my experience as a coach of American emotions is actually what you described for England. Like, people have been shut down emotionally that we act out, and maybe that's the perspective that you're seeing, is this acting out. And who knows where that comes from exactly, you know, but we are very we've been suppressed, you know. There's a lot of people that are super uncomfortable with tears. This is my personal experience. So they're super uncomfortable with tears. You know, I've talked to my brother about this once or twice, you know, where they would always tease me for crying. And I took it to mean, you know, that I'm too emotional and there's something wrong with me. And so I tried my best to control my emotions, and I just suck at it. I cannot control my emotions. But all it really did is make me really hate crying in front of people. And my brother says, well, I mean, it was annoying. We weren't like, we didn't not like the fact that you cried. We didn't like the noise that was coming out of your mouth. And I'm like, oh, all right. Well, I just based my entire life around this lie.
I mean, I'm sure if more people cried, it would be fine. You know, we'd all get used to it. But, you know, I mean, children cry, don't they? And no one really is bothered by that. You know, it's just, yeah.
Well, I mean,
no, I've covered that quite a bit in my book, actually, a lot of stuff on emotions, because I think they're very misunderstood.
Yes.
I talk a lot about what happens when we do repress emotions, when we have traumas and we've got emotions from traumas. And, you know, all these emotions are just locked away in our bodies. And, you know, we need to refeel. The only way to get them out is to feel them and continue them, because emotions are designed to come in, flow through and flow out. So if we block them and stop them, they just get stuck. And, you know, I came up with a sort of technique for really feeling emotions that the teenagers can sort of sit and do, you know, and just to sit and feel into those emotions, and to know that they're not going to hurt you. And they might make you cry for a few 10 seconds or something, but generally emotions can't hurt you.
Right. We just don't like how they feel.
No, and it's funny, isn't it? Because why don't we like how they feel? It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because they're over quite quickly once you feel them.
Right. Oh yeah, for sure. When you actually let them go. I think a friend of mine read a book that said that emotions only last 90 seconds. And anything longer than that is actually, it's a mood.
Yes, no, that sounds about right. Because you can't hold on to a really intense emotion for very long, can you?
Right.
It's just impossible.
Yeah. Like yesterday, somebody parked. I live on a farm, and we rent the farmhouse, but the farm is active. So there's people all around driving tractors and making lots of noise at all hours of the day. And they're very good usually about not interfering. Like, we don't interfere with them, they don't interfere with us. And yesterday they parked in front of my garage, this tractor, and nobody was on the tractor, and I didn't see anybody around. And, you know, I got irritated and a little bit angry, because the only reason I went outside was to get in my car to go pick up my son. And heaven forbid I give myself enough time for a problem to arise. I did not. And so, you know, but that irritation lasted about 90 seconds. As soon as I found a person, like, I've been, you know, practicing treating every person like it's their birthday. So you're not going to, you know, be mean to somebody on their birthday. And so I heard somebody clear their throat, and I walked over towards the noise, and I was like, hey, I'm trying to get out. Could you move the tractor? And he was so apologetic, because they've been told not to interfere with us the same way that we've been told not to interfere with them. But I mean,
it could have been something that changed my mood and put me in a bad mood because I was, 3 minutes later than I wanted to be. And what does that solve? Right.
Exactly. And also, if you'd gone up to him and been more aggressive, and which a lot of people might have been, and he probably would have done the same back to you, and then it would have escalated, and you'd both come away feeling kind of miserable and, and stressed by it. So I think what you give out is often what you get back, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you give out kindness and things, then you get it back.
Absolutely. And then you wonder why everybody's in a bad mood all the time and why you're in a bad mood all the time.
Exactly. Yeah.
It starts with you.
Starts inside. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
There's other moments that last a little bit longer. And I think that, I had somebody cut in front of me rather closely where I had to brake in order to not hit that person. And I believe 100% it was intentional. He was irritated at me for something that I'm not even familiar. I don't even know why he was irritated at me. That's in front of me. And, I have to brake. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, you almost wrecked my car. And you almost hurt my child, and not in that order. It was in the other.
Yeah.
It was the other way around. And so that actually lasted a little bit longer because there was something attached to it. And I think and I didn't get to have this conversation with the person where he apologized to me, and that made me feel better. And so it didn't go away until I was able to tell someone I'm super irritated that this thing happened. So I think there's certain things that, depending on how deeply they affect us, that we have, it takes longer or shorter to get rid of.
Well, I think what happens is when we have traumas and things when we're young, we often don't even remember them. They can be, when you're 2 or 3 or something. And then what happens is every time you come across a situation that reminds you a bit of that, you react.
Right.
So, and again, repressing the emotions. If you're repressing anger all the time, which a lot of people are, when something happens that gives you a legitimate reason to be a bit angry, people are often just fly off the handle and much angrier than it really warrants, because they've got so much anger that they need to get out. The body's kind of like, oh, good, I can let some anger out here. It's a bit full in here, and it's just suddenly, anger flying everywhere. So exactly. I think, this is the problem. We're all walking around quite triggered by all our traumas and our repressed emotions, and then we bump into each other and sparks fly. That happens. It's not just anger, it's self-esteem, it's all sorts of things. People are just triggering each other left, right, and center.
So true.
So the only way you can not be triggered is to just have just peace inside you, and just to love yourself and to be peaceful, and to know that it doesn't matter what's going on outside.
And that really stems from healing those traumas.
Definitely. So another thing I cover in the book a lot is trauma, because it's quite a big thing, and a lot of sort of poor mental health is propped up on trauma. So, and it's quite a difficult one to do it in a self-help guide, because it's not probably very comfortable to be dealing with your own trauma by yourself, a lot of the time. So, I've had to be very careful and say to teenagers that if it's anything big or that really triggers them, or something they've locked away and really pushed down, that it's best dealt with somebody else, a counsellor or something, some sort of external help, or to get support from parents. But I do talk them through, there are many little traumas that we have which seem really small. And one of the examples I give in the book is when I was quite young, I had to stand up and give a presentation in assembly. I was probably about 8 or something, and I was quite excited about it. I planned it all out and knew what I was going to say. And I stood up, and suddenly all these eyes on me, and I just froze. And I was just like, I was just totally overwhelmed in that moment. I couldn't speak, and I just sat down again. And that's just stayed with me for so many years. I just couldn't. The minute anyone looked at me, I froze. And it's such a seemingly small little event, but you know, that had such a profound effect on me for so many years, and my confidence and things, and how I related to people. And you know, just like standing and talking in front of anybody would have been a big no-no. And you know, I've worked quite hard on it and I'm fine with it now, but it's, you know, it's been quite a lot of work to get there. So yeah, there's sort of quite a lot of techniques in the book for dealing with these sort of smaller traumas, and really feeling the emotions from them, because it's like a moment of stuck emotion of trauma. So in that moment I felt overwhelmed and probably ashamed that I felt that I couldn't do it. So, you know, I had to really go back and feel those feelings of overwhelm and shame, and then that sort of cleared it a bit.
Yeah.
So,
and we like to define trauma as a major life event that's happened. And in reality, anything that goes away that we didn't want it to, or we think it shouldn't have, can and should be defined as a trauma. There's macro traumas and micro traumas. And the micro ones are the little ones. And like, you know, I don't mean for this to sound insensitive, but that's a micro trauma. It had a profound effect on your life, but in comparison, it's micro. But in your life, it's a macro trauma.
Definitely.
And my worst pain is my worst pain, whether we can't compare it to anybody else's pain. You know, I have a friend whose father died by being stabbed to death by his best friend, and then died in his mom's arms. And that's awful and extremely traumatic. I think she was 3 years old when that happened. And nothing like that's ever happened to me. But that doesn't mean that my worst trauma is any less than her worst trauma.
Definitely, yeah.
You know, and we've got to get out of this. I can only heal my pain, and I can only talk about my pain if it's bad enough to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Somebody has this list of what's bad enough to talk about. You know, but if that's the truth, then only one person out of 8 billion gets to heal, because only one person has the worst trauma.
Exactly. And it's all about perception, because you can have the same two people can have the same thing happen to them. One won't be bothered at all, and then the other one will be highly traumatized. So it's our sort of inner world, isn't it? Our beliefs and perceptions that make us, you know, judge something as being, you know, frightening or upsetting, when actually somebody else would just laugh and say, oh, that's funny or something. So, you know, it's not really about the external world at all, is it? It's not really about the events and the things that happen. It's about how we feel inside and how we feel about ourselves, mainly.
Absolutely. And, you know, when you were saying you're talking to the teenagers and getting them to, you know, reach out for a counselor or to their parents, before you said parents, I was thinking, talk to your parents. And I take for granted the fact that I had parents that I could talk to. And there are a lot of teenagers that don't.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of parents, I mean, no disrespect to them at all. They're doing the best they can, but they don't have the skills.
Right.
You know, they don't have the sort of psychology understanding of how things work. And, you know, and a lot of, don't forget, you know, the parents themselves are the product of their own traumas and their own beliefs and perceptions. So you may get a parent who failed at school, and their one ambition is that their children do well, because that makes them feel somehow like they've succeeded. So they'll push their children really hard to be successful, not realizing that actually the child doesn't really want to do that. That's not their thing. So I mean, parents we're just all damaged children, really, aren't we? Parents. We all are. So yeah, we bring all our stuff with us, all our baggage into our parenting.
Yeah, and we're not perfect. We're parents, you know, and it's important. That's the purpose of this podcast, is to get parents to realize that their own healing is, well, mom specifically, because when you change the mom, it's just like in that movie, My Big Fat Greek Wedding. The man is the head of the household, but the woman is the neck, and she can turn that head any which way she wants.
Yeah.
But when mom heals, the family heals.
Definitely.
And, you know, your healing is so important. I would argue that it's the most important thing as a parent is your own healing.
Yeah, definitely. You should have to go on a healing course, shouldn't you, if you want to have children?
Okay, so I get kind of crazy with my theory about parenting, that, you know, we have to have a license for everything else, at least in the United States. You have to have a license to drive, if you wanted to fly, have an airplane, if you wanted to drive an airplane, you have to have a pilot's license. If you want to drive a motorcycle, you have to have a motorcycle license. If you want to fish, you have to have a fishing license. Like, there's all these licenses, but the most important thing, parenting, raising the next generation, anybody can do it.
I know. I mean, if you think about adoption, how strict they are.
Yes.
If you want to adopt a child, you know, you're going to be thoroughly assessed for probably years or something, aren't you? Every little bit of your character revealed and everything you've ever done in the past. And yet you can just go off and have your own child, and anybody can, you know.
And so it's expensive. Adoption is expensive.
Yeah. No, it's scary.
I'm familiar with surrogacy. Surrogacy is expensive. It's very frustrating. I tried for 1.5 years to have my son, and I am not a patient person. And it was very difficult to wait for 18 months to get pregnant, not knowing that the 18 months was when I was going to get pregnant. And then have to wait another 9 months. I mean, I was accepting of that by the time I got pregnant, and some moms have to wait years and years and years and don't ever have their own children or their own pregnancy. And, you know, it's really difficult when you're not a parent, watching everybody else become parents, especially when it's like a teen pregnancy. It's really hard that, you know, there are people that are making wise choices, like, I want to be financially stable or whatnot before I have a kid, and then they struggle because it takes them till they're 38 to be financially stable enough. And now we're past, you know, some of the most, you know, easily fertile years. It's even a little counterintuitive that way. It's a struggle, and it's definitely not fair, but life's not fair.
That's how it goes. I know that's the problem, isn't it? Everyone puts it off as long as possible, and then they don't realize that you start, you know, once you get past sort of 35, it gets harder. I've got quite a few friends that have been in that situation, you know, and myself as well. So it's a difficult one.
Is there a piece of advice that you want to share with our mom listeners?
I mean, thinking about parenting, my biggest takeaway really from my daughter's 17, and we have such a good relationship. We're just good friends. We're respectful to each other. You know, it's just really harmonious. You know, she goes out with her friends and does a bit of drinking now and again, but you know, that's okay. It's got boundaries and it's fine. But I think my biggest takeaway really is respect, because I think I see a lot of parents with teenagers still treating them like they're 8, nagging them all the time, telling them what to do, trying to control, sort of micromanage everything about them. And you know, you have to when they're little. That's your job, and it's really important, and you have to do it. But actually, as they sort of get to about 11, 12, 13, that needs to just be slowly dropped away. And so in the end, you've got to start trusting them, because they're becoming adults. And you've got to start trusting them to kind of step up and make their own decisions, and to make mistakes as well. So we've always had a thing. My daughter's very willful and strong, and I'm fairly soft and go with the flow. So it was very difficult from, you know, right from, I think, the minute she was born, it was difficult. But I came across this fantastic parenting technique called parent effectiveness training. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's somebody called Dr. Thomas Gordon. It's an American.
I think I have, actually.
Guy who's in the 60s. But it's basically, I just read his book and it was amazing. I mean, I read that when my daughter was sort of 2 or 3, and it just set my parenting in the right direction. And one of the biggest things was, if there's a problem that you can't solve by nagging or whatever, is to sit down and talk with them.
Yeah.
So we always had this policy: if there's a problem, I'd say, right, come on, Eden, we've got a problem. I've got a problem getting you up in the morning. I can't just keep doing it like this. What can we do? And the act of sitting down together and just sort of talking it through and finding a solution together was just amazing, because they love that. They love being creative. They love being kind of part of the decision-making process. And then because they've come up with solutions, they want to do them.
Yeah.
So, everything I had a problem with, we would just talk about, we'd find a solution. And even one time it was like, look, you don't want to do this, but you do it for me, and then I'll do something for you tomorrow. And she loved that.
Yeah.
And I thought, God, what's she going to ask me to do? I was dreading it. And she went, oh, I'll have an ice cream, thank you. So it was really sweet. And so, I think that whole respect and stepping up together to sort things out just is amazing. It just really works. And then they feel respected, so they tend to respect you back, and you end up with a much better relationship.
And it goes back to our first concept of, you get back what you give. And so if you want your your teenager to respect you, you need to respect them. And respect is not dominance.
Exactly.
Those are very different things.
No, that's very true. I like that. What you give is what you get back. And it's so true. If you give out constant moaning and nagging at them, you're going to get that back.
Yeah.
Probably in spades as they're teenagers.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's probably my biggest take home from parenting.
Awesome. Is there a personal development book that was especially impactful for you? Or is that the one that you just read? Or you just... I
think for parenting, that was the one, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I've lots of other self-development books that have, been amazing, but gosh.
Is there one that's off the top of your head that you want to mention for personal development?
I'm trying to think where I started. There's an amazing book. I'm just trying to think what his name. I think it's called The Surrender Project. I can't remember who wrote it. And it's just about a guy who he decides that the universe is just going to take care of him, and he doesn't need to do anything. He just needs to follow the flow of life and just really trust where it's going to go. So he just sort of lives there in this caravan in the woods or something, and slowly just life just unfolds, and he gets all these opportunities and things happen, and he ends up a multi-millionaire. Wow. Because he just gets involved in this scheme with somebody, and that I love that. It's absolutely amazing.
That's interesting. Very cool.
Yeah, a good read and a true story.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Eleanor, for coming and pouring into our guests, and I think that your book is going to change the next generation of anyone that gets their fingers on it.
Oh, thank you. Hopefully. Thank you. No, it's been lovely to talk to you. Very interesting.
You too. And we will be back next week for another episode of Imperfect Momming. And until then, make sure that you like and subscribe and review and all the fun things that you're supposed to do with podcasts to improve their reach. And until then, keep healing. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Imperfect Momming. It's time for us to step up and realize that our power is not in trying to shape our children. Our power lies in shaping ourselves into the people we want our children to model themselves after. Don't just do it for your kids. Do it for yourself. When you become a more self-aware, compassionate, and confident person, you and everyone around you benefit. For more information about me and my work, visit AliciaLyons.com. That's ALYSIALYONS.com. See you next time.